of the Grey Areas podcast. I'm super happy to have you here today. As you know, I'm Yan W. Tanoe, your host for today. Social entrepreneur, designer, publisher, everything. I'm the guy that does everything. And today, I'm very happy to be joined by my co-host, Donia Fredge. Hello, Donia, how are you doing?
Hi, Yan, how are you?
I'm fantastic, as always. You know, the quarantine has been very good to me, so I'm really, really happy about that.
Yeah. That's good to hear.
Donia's joining us from Dubai, okay? So it's, you know, it's somewhere else. So we're getting international because we're getting people from overseas, which is absolutely amazing. Donia is a very good friend of mine. She's also a corporate lawyer in Dubai. And she's also moving into the media aspect of things. And she started by creating her own YouTube channel related to all things legal called Door to Law. The Door to
That's right.
Yeah. So, you know,
the door is open. Come on in.
That's right. You know, you better watch out for this lady. So, Donnie, tell us a little bit more about what you do, and then we'll talk about the topic.
Sure. So first of all, hello everyone. Lovely to be on the show, Yan. So my name is Donia, and originally from the UK, as you can probably tell from my very British accent. But I moved over to Dubai around, I think, gosh, it's probably over 4 years ago now, maybe even coming up to 5 years in a few months. Time really flies. But I'm a corporate lawyer, so originally I trained as a lawyer in the UK, and then I moved over to Dubai with an international law firm, and I was with them for a few years until recently I actually just moved over to a tech startup, as I'm quite interested in innovation, entrepreneurship, so I specialize in helping startups with their funding rounds predominantly. And also helping to automate the legal startup experience. And then, as you mentioned, I'm also really interested in the media aspect of things. I just created my own YouTube show, The Door to Law, where I interview like a number of entrepreneurs and kind of shine a spotlight on them, but also talk about legal issues and hopefully a kind of easy to digest, accessible way for everybody who are not lawyers to understand.
Excellent. See, so Donia is a high flyer. Okay, we love the high flyers and the trailblazers. We do. Fantastic. A lady that's doing it, and we're here for this. Absolutely. And so today's topic, I mean, Donia and I went back and forth about topics. You know, it's actually amazing that we're sitting down today because we've been planning to do this for about a year or two. Okay.
Yeah, we have.
We've had all sorts of challenges from lighting issues, finding the content, to anything, but we finally agreed on something.
Just say it, yeah, it was my fault. It's taken about a year. That's what I was trying to say.
You know, so we finally agreed on a topic this week, and we decided that something that unifies us in a way is diversity, okay? Because we've got very diverse backgrounds, as you're going to see, and also the media aspect of things. You know, as many people know, you know, I do lots of different things with my publishing house. It's becoming more interactive. You know, I'm on air. I'm doing radio things. I'm doing podcasts, webcasts like this one. You know, you name it. And Donia similarly has got lots of different projects that she's doing with her YouTube channel and a lot of other things. So we want to discuss that aspect of diversity and the media and how people like us can fit into that aspect of things. Okay, so Donia, just talk to us a little bit about your diversity. What does diversity mean to you, and about your personal your personal cocktail? What's it made of?
I love that. So my cocktail, wow, difficult to describe. I think that's the one thing I would say about diversity is you can't really define it specifically. You know, it's about what makes people different, and it ties into a little bit with the concept of identity really, and how you define yourself, whether it's, you know, by your nationality, your culture, your religion, your race, even your kind of your socioeconomic status and where you class yourself really, and of course your gender and your sexuality as well. So a number of things. For me personally, I guess what makes me diverse, the way I see myself as being diverse, is predominantly well, one, I was born in the UK, but my parents are both Tunisian, and that anyone that doesn't know Tunisia, sometimes I get this like, oh, Indonesia. I'm like, no, Tunisia. In North Africa. So we speak Arabic as our first language. French is second language. And yes, we have that in common, a bit of français. That's as far as I'm going to go with my French on camera. And we're Muslim as well, predominantly. About 99% of the population in Tunisia is Muslim. So I identify as Muslim, Tunisian, Arab, and I think that's an important distinction, by the way. You know, Arabs, you know, can encompass a number of nationalities: Lebanese, Jordanian, you know, Emirati, Saudi. But Tunisia has its own unique identity as well. So, and that's reflected through its own Arabic dialect. Also, there are other, you know, ways in which I identify myself. Of course, I'm a woman, and in certain situations that may, you know, I may identify with that aspect more strongly than others, you know, particularly being in the legal industry where it's, you know, male dominated. I feel my gender a lot more. So I would say it often depends on the situation you are in the social context, in terms of how we identify ourselves. But yeah, that's essentially, you know, me as being, I have a little bit of British, have a little bit of Tunisian, I'm Muslim, I'm female, I'm a daughter, so many things that kind of make me who I am.
I found that very fascinating. You haven't just lived, because also the places that you live also add to that. So you haven't just lived in the UK and Dubai, you've lived in other places.
Yeah, so I've lived in Paris for a short period of time, but I was working over there for 3 months as part of my degree, which was an amazing experience, very short, very sweet. And then from Paris, I went to Tunis. Now, my family are originally from Tunisia, but I'd never actually lived in Tunisia up until that point. It'd always just been somewhere I went on my summer holiday. I identified it as this kind of a place of idealism, you know, the beach, great food, family. When I made the choice to actually go and live for a year in the capital city away from my family, which was a choice I made to really kind of see Tunisia through different eyes, away from my family, just see it for what it actually is. And you see the bad and you see the good, but that gave me a much more wholesome picture of what Tunisia is. And also, when you have the good and the bad, it actually makes it more beautiful because you know, it's not this kind of just postcard anymore. It's real. And so I really found that year amazing in terms of just getting to know my country for what it is and seeing the different, you know, different people across different statuses. There's a lot of socioeconomic issues in Tunisia as well. You know, seeing the racism, seeing people struggling for work, all of that, and learning the Tunisian dialect properly as opposed to just, you know, knowing a few words. I really immersed myself into the culture. So that really opened my eyes and made me realize that Tunisian culture is much bigger than just, for example, being Muslim. Because when I was brought up in the UK, I wasn't as exposed to Tunisian culture. Okay, my mum would maybe make some Tunisian food for me. I wasn't watching Tunisian TV. I wasn't listening to the radio. I wasn't speaking the Tunisian dialect every day. So for me, I identified more with my religion. But when I went to Tunisia, I started to become, you know, see the beauty of the culture a lot more. And then aside from that, I've also lived in Tokyo for 6 months, which is completely different, so far removed from what you could ever imagine. But it just, I think traveling a lot and living abroad, it just, it opens your mind. It just makes you more culturally open to different things. And so I'm very grateful for those experiences.
Absolutely, and those things have come together to shape the person that you are today, that's able to live somewhere else, work somewhere else, adapt somewhere else. And, you know, just I find that people like us, you know, are just people that can just go and get life and eat it, you know. That's the way that I see it. That we can go out and we can make anything happen because our brain is shaped a certain way. Because, you know, yes, we're linguists as well, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you know, we've got that aspect of open. Everything is just open, you know.
Well,
and
so
I love that.
Scientifically, sorry to cut you off, but I think scientifically, like learning languages and living in different countries is proven to change like the brain and mold it in a different way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, and it's interesting that we've got both projects. I have Open Door Magazine, and you've got open. We've both got open in our project.
Yeah.
Because because we're people that are open, because of our experiences and our identities, and I think that's absolutely brilliant that we're able to just be the type of people because of our identity. So for me, a lot of people that follow know, but I'll just say for the new viewers, so I'm a cocktail. That's why I use that word, So I'm West African, I'm French, and I'm also Arabic. So there's two things that connect me to Donia: the French part and the Arabic part. I'm quarter Lebanese, okay, just very tan. Quarter Lebanese, quarter French. Yeah, exactly. And the rest is West African. So and I'm by nationality I am a French citizen. So I'm an EU citizen here in the UK. So that's kind of a hot topic by itself. So I've always remained an EU citizen here. I haven't taken the citizenship here. Something that I'm looking at because my wife is British and there's lots of different things going on. But that's another thing. That's another conversation altogether. But again, for me, I've lived on three continents. Traveled around with my dad. Physician. My dad was a physician working for big corporate companies, and so we traveled a lot until we settled in the UK. So the broadness of my view and my horizon has been shaped like this, and that's the reason why people often say, "Jan, you're so expansive." What expensive, expansive. I don't know the two, but you're so expansive, and why is that? And people can't always understand. It's like, well, yeah, because my horizons were expanded from very early on.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why when I view things in such a big way all the time. It's such a because that's what I've grown up and that's how I've come to be shaped. Okay, so it's very interesting also that aspect of culture that we talk about. Another point that we wanted to kind of discuss was for us to share times when we have had to exert our identity, because obviously we're so larger than life, if you want to look at it, that in certain places or in certain instances, yes, we do have to to shape and mold ourselves. So Donia, do you have an experience to share about that?
Yeah, so actually going back to my experience of living in Tunisia, so during that year, I was really focusing on developing my Tunisian identity. And so by the time I left at the end of the 9 months, I felt like, oh yes, I'm 100% Tunisian. Where it was strange, when I was in the UK, I always felt like slightly inferior to some of my cousins living in Tunisia, like I wasn't exposed to as much. So living there, I really kind of absorbed it and took everything in, even like little euphemisms and the little jokes. And so on the day that I left, I felt, yes, I'm going back stronger, like having a stronger Tunisian identity. Then the most interesting incident happened to me. So I stayed in Tunisia for 9 months and I went in on a British passport. And I hadn't had a Tunisian passport at that time for various reasons. I actually have one now, but at the time I didn't. And when I came to leave Tunisia to go back home to the UK, I was told I wasn't allowed to board my flight because I didn't have a Tunisian passport. And I was like, this cannot be happening to me. I am British. And at that point, I went full UK on them. I was like, oh, I feel a bit like, I do feel very kind of ashamed of myself in a way, that I was like full on going crazy. I am not Tunisian. I was born in the UK. I have lived in the UK all my life. I go to university and I just literally had a field day with them. And they were like, no, you need to have a Tunisian passport. They just weren't listening to me. And that was at that point where I really asserted my British identity, because
right.
denying the fact that I was born in the UK, like I'm British. And so at that point I realized, you manipulate your identities, use them to your advantage.
Absolutely.
It depends on the social context, right? So luckily, basically my mum is also just as crazy as me, and she phoned them and she threatened to contact the president if they didn't let me go on the flight. I lost my flight, but the next morning I was allowed to travel, so I had to buy a new ticket, and then they escorted me onto the plane and apologized. And I'm like, well, it's a bit late.
Well, check this out.
Yeah, and then I got
The
my
lady with the
passport
connection.
now,
Yeah.
so all is solved. But yeah, that's just an example.
No, it's absolutely crazy. You know, I'm a French citizen. You know, I've got two citizens. I've got the Ivorian citizenship, I've got the French citizenship. Okay, and like I said, I'm thinking about the British citizenship. So again, you know, I'm very proud. You know, everything that I do is like, it's to do with the African continent and things like that. But yes, I've manipulated my French identity as well when I needed to. You know, when I was like, oh no, French passport. You know, because that opens all the doors to you naturally. You know, so
Of course,
there's an aspect
yeah.
of that people like us that are dual nationals, or you know, that have different background or allegiances to different nations can play the field a little bit. You know, and just be like, okay, well, actually, let me pull this card today. And
Absolutely, you have to.
There's nothing wrong with it.
You're given a gift, you have to use it. I mean,
there's nothing wrong with it.
Would you say you identify with more than the other, or would you say it really just depends? Like
It's really difficult. It's very difficult because obviously, you know, bloodline wise, like I said, you know, I've got three. So there's the black, there's a bit of white, and there's the Arabic. So you know, genetically, that's what I've got. Now, when you're talking about the way that you know, I identify to, you know, to whatever nation, it's a bit difficult because I've lived in the UK since I was 12. Okay, so you know, it's a long time. A lot of the things that I've grown up with, I've been, you know, because your teenage years kind of shape the person that you become. But at the same time, I grew up, you know, in the French system, you know, whether it was in Ivory Coast or in France, you know, and so it's a battle. Physically, because I look at this like physically, you know, I'm a black man. I love the African continent, and I fight for the African continent. Okay.
Yeah.
Culturally, I love West African culture. I love Middle Eastern culture. I love French culture. And this is that package that I'm handing over to my children. So it's very difficult to put one finger on it. It really is, and I think it's a journey. It's something that I'm kind of discovering as I'm going along. Really.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I completely agree.
I can't really just say that I have this one thing. But for me, it's always been, you know, when you talk about asserting identity, it's always been very interesting because I've always been the only person of color everywhere I've been, you know, because I live in very what's the word?
I mean, we both went to school in college in Norfolk, right? I mean,
that's it. You know? And it was quite interesting, actually. Yes, it was quite interesting because in college, in that Norfolk arena, it was interesting because I found myself creating a group, okay, we called it the United Nations. So I kind of, you know, that's what it was. I pulled everyone that was like a child of a migrant, that was of a different color, different language, and we had this group. You know, I don't know what it looked like to other people. I didn't care at the time. But you know, now thinking about it, I'm just like, wow, that must have been really intimidating because actually a lot of people were trying to come into the group because they were like, this is so cool. So I
thought it was really cool because I saw you guys and I was like, I was just immediately attracted. I was like, oh, I want to break into this group. And you were so loud as well. You just like take up the whole room.
It was great, you know. So I think that's an example of exerting identity because to me, it's always been important to bring people together, you know, and I've grown up with that value. And today, as an entrepreneur, this is what a lot of my brands are about. My main brand is about multiculturalism, okay? Yeah. Everything that I do has got a multicultural aspect. My publishing house, my publications, you know, down to the clothing that you know, the food, my food business, it was fusion food. Everything that I do is multicultural. You know, a lot of people will say, oh, multicultural failed the societies, it's such a bad thing and all this. Okay, fine. But to me, the essence of multiculturalism is collaboration. It's bringing people together. It's actually, you know, sharing the best that we've got so that we can move forward. You know, so I love culture. Right. I love culture. I love food fusion. I love, you know, dressing up, you know, and having that fusion. Because that's what this is all about. Like I said, this is what my background has been, you know. And so I can't help but be anything else. I often get this criticism from, people from my community, the African diaspora or whatever, saying, why are you doing stuff that's not just black related? And okay, and that's fine. And I do things like that, that are black related, but my first thing is multicultural. I want
because
everybody.
that's who you are, and you have to embrace that.
And that's something that I promote in my community, that, just because you're of African descent, it doesn't mean that you're just exclusively of African descent. Like, I've got many bloodlines, I've got many cultures that I've grown up in. It's not something that I'm just saying, my great-grandfather was this, my great-grandmother. No, I've experienced Lebanese culture, going in and having all the mitzvahs and, being with the aunties, the uncles, or whatever else.
Yeah.
And I've experienced Ghanaian culture,